you are not speaking your truth. You are broadcasting your weakness. Every single day, you use words that betray you. Words that signal to everyone around you that you haven't evolved past the emotional capacity of a child. And the most dangerous part? You don't even hear yourself doing it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." But here's what he didn't say directly: the words you speak reveal the quality of your character. They show whether you've mastered yourself or whether you're still being mastered by your reactions, your needs, your fears. Today, I'm going to show you 6 specific words and phrases that make you sound emotionally immature. But this isn't some polite communication guide. This is about identity. Because every time these words leave your mouth, you're not just making a poor word choice, you're reinforcing a weak pattern in your mind. You're practicing being reactive instead of composed. You're training yourself to stay stuck. By the end of this video, you'll understand what I call the dignity filter, the invisible barrier that separates the reactive person from the stoic. You'll learn to catch yourself before you expose your emotional immaturity to the world. And you'll discover how simply changing your language can fundamentally change who you are. Let's begin. The first word, whatever. The first word that exposes your emotional immaturity is simple: whatever. When someone challenges you and you respond with whatever, you think you're being dismissive. You think you're above the conversation. But here's what everyone else hears: I don't have the emotional resources to handle this, so I'm retreating. The average person uses whatever as a shield. The Stoic recognizes it as a surrender. Let me show you why this matters. Epictetus taught his students about the dichotomy of control, understanding what you can control and what you cannot. When you say whatever, you're abdicating control over the one thing you actually possess: your response. You're choosing chaos over composure. Think about the last time someone said whatever to you. Did you think, wow, that person is really mature and has their emotions handled? Or did you recognize it for what it is: a verbal tantrum, a masked, I can't deal with this? Here's the psychological mechanism. Whatever is what psychologists call avoidant dismissal. It's a primitive defense mechanism. When a child can't process complex emotions, they shut down. When an emotionally undeveloped adult can't process conflict, they say whatever. Let me give you a scenario. 2 men get critical feedback at work. The first man, when his boss points out an error, says, "Whatever, man. I do my best." He walks away feeling superior, but everyone in the room just watched him fail a basic maturity test. The second man takes a breath. He says, "I understand. I'll handle it differently next time." Same situation. Completely different level of respect earned. The Stoic recognizes that whatever is what I call verbal surrender, the moment you give up your power by refusing to engage with reality. Here's how to catch yourself. The next time you feel the word whatever forming in your mouth, pause. Feel that impulse. That's your ego trying to protect itself from feeling challenged. Don't suppress it, transmute it. Replace whatever with either engaged disagreement or dignified acceptance. Say, I see it differently, and here's why. Or, I'll think about that. Both responses maintain your dignity. Whatever destroys it. The second phrase, I can't help it. The second phrase that reveals emotional immaturity, I can't help it. These 4 words are the signature of the victim. They're the declaration that you are not in control of yourself. And when you're not in control of yourself, you become controllable by everything else. Listen to how people use this phrase. I can't help it, I just get angry. I can't help it, that's just how I am. I can't help it, I have anxiety. Each time, what you're really saying is, I am not the author of my own behavior. I am a passenger in my own life. Marcus Aurelius faced this choice every single day. He was the most powerful man in the world, surrounded by flattery and corruption, dealing with plague, war, and betrayal. His journals reveal constant struggle. But never once does he write, I can't help it. Instead, he wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The foolish man believes he's at the mercy of his emotions. The wise man knows his emotions are weather patterns, they come and go, but he is the mountain. Here's what's happening psychologically. When you say, I can't help it, you're engaging in what's called learned helplessness. Psychologist Martin Seligman discovered this phenomenon. When subjects were repeatedly put in situations where they couldn't control outcomes, they eventually stopped trying, even when control became possible. They had learned to be helpless. Every time you say, I can't help it, you're practicing helplessness. You're training your brain to believe you're not capable of self-regulation. But here's the truth that will set you free. Between every stimulus and your response is a space. Viktor Frankl discovered this in Auschwitz, the concentration camp where the Nazis could control everything except his inner response. He wrote, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. If a man can choose his response in a death camp, you can choose yours in traffic. In an argument. When you're tired. The transformation, replace I can't help it with I'm choosing not to control this right now, or I can learn to manage this. See the difference? One is surrender. The other is honest acknowledgement with implied agency. You always have more control than you're admitting. Stop lying to yourself about your powerlessness. The third phrase, it's not fair. The third phrase that exposes emotional immaturity, it's not fair. These three words are the anthem of the child-minded. They reveal a fundamental misunderstanding of how reality works. When a 5-year-old says, it's not fair, we understand they're still learning that the universe doesn't organize itself around their preferences. When a grown adult says, it's not fair, we're watching someone who never completed that lesson. The average person expects fairness. The Stoic expects reality. Seneca wrote, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. The universe is not fair, it's useful. Every unfair thing that happens to you is either a test or a teacher. Let me show you what it's not fair actually means. It's not fair equals reality should conform to my expectations. It's not fair equals I'm surprised that life is hard. It's not fair equals I haven't accepted that I'm not special. Here's the brutal truth. The universe has no concept of fairness. Fairness is a human invention, a social contract we try to impose on chaos. And when you complain that something isn't fair, you're arguing with reality itself. That's a fight you will lose every single time. Think about two men who both lose their jobs in a corporate restructuring. The first man says, this isn't fair. I worked harder than everyone else. He's stuck in resentment, paralyzed by injustice, waiting for the universe to apologize. The second man thinks this happened. Now what? He's already updating his resume, reaching out to contacts, adapting to the new reality. Which man gets hired first? Which man you want to be around? Which man are you? The psychological trap here is what's called just world hypothesis, the cognitive bias that makes us believe good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. It's comforting. It's also completely false. The Stoic develops what I call reality acceptance mechanism, the ability to see things exactly as they are, not as they should be. This isn't pessimism. It's precision. It's power. Here's your practice. The next time you feel it's not fair rising up, stop. Ask yourself, is this complaint changing reality or just broadcasting my weakness? Then replace it with, this is the situation. How do I respond? You don't have to like reality. You just have to stop arguing with it. The fourth phrase, you made me feel. The fourth phrase that reveals emotional immaturity, you made me feel. This phrase is perhaps the most seductive because our entire therapeutic culture has taught you that it's healthy to express your feelings this way. But it's built on a lie, the lie that other people control your emotional state. No one can make you feel anything. They can do things. They can say things. But the feeling, that's your production. That's your interpretation, your meaning-making, your choice. When you say, you made me feel, you're giving away the only power you have, the power to choose your response. Epictetus was born a slave. Physically, he had no freedom. His master could beat him, chain him, control his entire external life. But Epictetus discovered something his master never understood. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. His master could control his body, but his emotions, his thoughts, those belong to Epictetus alone. Now look at your life. You're not a slave. No one is physically controlling you. Yet you willingly give others control over your inner state by believing they made you feel something. Here's the mechanism. When you say, "You made me angry," you've created a causation chain that disempowers you. Person does X, I automatically feel Y. You've removed yourself from the equation. You're no longer an agent. You're a machine that automatically produces emotions when the right buttons are pushed. But the truth? Person does X, I interpret it as threatening / disrespectful / hurtful. I generate anger, I experience that anger. You're in every step of that chain. Two people hear the same insult. One feels devastated. One feels nothing. Same stimulus, different response. Why? Because the response was never about the stimulus, it was about the interpreter. Let me give you a different scenario. A woman says something critical to two different men. The first man responds, "You made me feel like I'm not good enough." He's just announced to her that she controls his self-worth. Watch how quickly she loses respect for him. The second man hears the same criticism and thinks, "She's expressing frustration." That's her experience. I'll decide if there's truth worth examining here. His self-worth remains exactly where he left it in his own hands. Which man seems mature? Which man would you trust in a crisis? The transformation, replace "you made me feel" with "I felt" or "I noticed, I reacted with." "I felt angry when that happened" acknowledges the emotion while maintaining agency. "You made me angry" gives away your power and blames someone else for your internal state. Own your emotions. They're the only thing you truly control. The fifth phrase, "I need," when seeking validation. The fifth phrase that signals emotional immaturity, "I need," when what you actually mean is, "I want validation." Listen to how this shows up. "I need you to understand me." "I need you to support my decision." "I need to hear that I'm doing okay." These aren't needs. You're not going to die without them. They're wants, preferences, desires for external validation. But when you call them needs, you're creating artificial urgency and dependency. The average person needs constant external confirmation. The Stoic is internally anchored. Here's what happened to you. You confused psychological comfort with survival necessity. Food is a need. Water is a need. Shelter is a need. Someone else's approval? That's a preference. And when you elevate preferences to needs, you make yourself emotionally dependent on things you cannot control. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire. He could have demanded validation, insisted people understand him, required constant support. Instead, he wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now." He understood the difference between actual needs and emotional cravings. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Two men face criticism at a family gathering. The first man later says to his partner, "I need you to tell me they were wrong. I need you to validate me." He's created emotional debt. He's made his stability conditional on her response. The subtext is, "I cannot regulate my own emotions, so you must do it for me." The second man processes it internally. He evaluates whether the criticism had merit. He comes to his own conclusions. If he discusses it with his partner, it's from curiosity, not dependency. "I'm interested in your perspective on what happened." One man is a bottomless pit of need. The other is a complete person seeking input. Here's the psychological truth. What you call a need for validation is actually external locus of self-worth. You've placed the source of your value outside yourself. This makes you perpetually unstable, always one criticism away from collapse, always one compliment away from temporary relief. The Stoic develops what I call the internal anchor, a stable sense of self that doesn't require constant external reinforcement. How do you build this? Stop using the word need for emotional wants. Get precise with your language. Instead of, I need you to understand me, try, I prefer to be understood, and I can handle it if I'm not. Instead of, I need support, try, I value your support, and I'm capable either way. Feel the difference? One is desperate. One is powerful. Your emotional stability is your responsibility. No one else's. The sixth word, fine, passive-aggressive. The sixth and final word that exposes emotional immaturity, fine, when it's clearly not fine. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Someone asks if you're okay. You're not. You say fine with that particular tone that means I'm furious, but I'm going to pretend I'm not and punish you for not reading my mind. This is what I call masked aggression, the inability to be direct about your emotional state, so you weaponize false compliance. The foolish man hides his anger and calls it maturity. The wise man states his boundary clearly and moves on. Here's what passive-aggressive fine reveals. You lack the courage to be honest and the maturity to let it go. You're stuck in between, not evolved enough to communicate directly, not disciplined enough to genuinely release it. Seneca wrote about anger extensively. He called it temporary madness. But you know what's worse than clean anger? Disguised anger. Because clean anger can be addressed and resolved. Disguised anger festers, poisons relationships, and makes you impossible to trust. When you say fine while radiating hostility, you're playing a game that no one respects. You're hoping the other person will probe deeper, chase you, extract the truth you're too afraid to volunteer. You're making them responsible for your emotional honesty. Picture the scenario. A couple has a disagreement. He asks, are we good? She says fine in that way that means everything is not fine. Now he has two bad options. Believe her and get punished later for not knowing she was lying, or don't believe her and get accused of not trusting her words. She's created a trap because she lacks the emotional maturity to say, I'm still processing what happened, or no, I'm still upset, and here's why. The same scenario with an emotionally mature person. He asks, are we good? She says, I need more time to think about this, or no, I'm still bothered by X, and I'd like to discuss it when I'm calmer. Direct, honest, clean. This is emotional adulthood. Here's the psychological pattern. Passive aggression comes from fear of conflict plus need for control. You're afraid of the direct confrontation, but you still want to punish. So you do it covertly. You withhold truth while expecting others to somehow know it anyway. The Stoic eliminates this entirely by developing what I call the dignity filter, a commitment to say what you mean or consciously choose silence. If you're upset, you have two mature options. Address it directly and clearly. Genuinely release it and move forward. What you don't get to do is pretend you've released it while secretly punishing others. The next time fine is about to leave your mouth when things aren't fine. Pause. Ask yourself, am I being honest or hiding? Then choose. Either say what's true or let it actually be fine. Your emotional honesty is a sign of strength, not weakness. The transformation. So now you have them. 6 words and phrases that have been exposing your emotional immaturity. Whatever, verbal surrender that gives away your power. I can't help it, the victim's anthem that denies your agency. It's not fair, the child's complaint that argues with reality. You made me feel, the blame displacement that surrenders control. I need. Validation, the dependency that reveals internal emptiness. Fine, passive-aggressive, the masked aggression that destroys trust. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't really about words. Words are just the surface. This is about identity. Every time you catch one of these phrases before it leaves your mouth, you're practicing a new identity. You're becoming the Stoic instead of the reactive person. You're choosing composition over chaos. You're selecting dignity over defense. Marcus Aurelius didn't become a philosopher king by accident. He practiced. Every day, every interaction, every moment was a choice between his lower impulses and his higher principles. You have the same choice. Imagine yourself 6 months from now. You're in a heated conversation. You feel that familiar urge to say whatever and walk away. but you don't. You take a breath. You engage or you genuinely disengage, but you don't surrender. Someone criticizes you unfairly. The old you would say, it's not fair. The new thinks, this is the situation. How do I respond powerfully? Someone tries to blame you for their emotions. The old you would accept that burden. The new you calmly clarifies, I understand you felt that way. Your feelings are your domain. This is what transformation looks like. Not dramatic. Not overnight. Just choice by choice, word by word, building a new pattern. The Stoics believed that wisdom was a practice, not a destination. You don't arrive at emotional maturity and then coast. You practice it daily, hourly, in small moments that no one else sees. Here's your mission. For the next 7 days, hunt for these phrases in your own speech. Don't judge yourself when you catch them. That's just more ego protection. Simply notice. There it is. That's the old pattern. Then choose differently.